Hey everybody, and welcome to Sparky's Corner. Nom, nom, nom.
Last video, which will go in the top left-hand corner of this video right now, bing, I talked about video game music of the 90s. What an excellent decade, the 90s. You know, I was born in the 90s, so automatically it's a good decade. Now, if you're starting my video series by watching this video first, you're doing it wrong. This is video number 3. You should start with video number 1, which is going to go in the top right-hand corner of this video right now, bing, and then proceed to video 2, which is already in the top left. I'll highlight it for you. There you go. If you've already watched those, thank you. And watch on, because today's decade is the 2000s.
I'll sing like this in the summertime.
Guess what franchise we're going to start with today? That's right, a variation of Super Mario something or other. I'll see if you know which game I'm talking about. Here's a hint. It features famous Nintendo characters from throughout the games of old. And they're all fighting each other. Can you guess what it is? I hope so. There's our little theme there. And there's those little motifs. Ba-ding, ba-ding. Now, earlier on, if you had guessed Super Smash Bros. Melee, you're correct. The reason I didn't use the original Super Smash Bros. From the Nintendo 64 is complicated. For one, Video 2 is long enough as is. I mean, Video 2 doesn't need more games added to it, and it certainly doesn't need more commentary. Oh, well, no, it might. But this isn't one of the ones we're going to add anyways, if we were going to add anything. Another reason is that while Super Smash Bros. Did, in fact, use game music in a somewhat new way, it didn't stand out as much at the time, simply because it followed a similar formula to Super Street Fighter 2, in that each stage had a different theme. In this iteration of the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, the platforming element, you know, jumping on platforms, the side-scrollers, side-scrolling element, was combined with a fighting element, with 4 players being able to fight simultaneously. The environments were dynamic and would change over time, as we're seeing here. And all of them were from previous Nintendo games, like Star Fox, F-Zero, which we're seeing here, and even Legend of Zelda, and many others. The music, on the other hand, was something different entirely. Just kidding, no it wasn't. Like the precursor games had established, music stays pretty constant throughout the level. You know, I mean, Super Mario Bros. It would speed up, but with other games it was just, you know, you had this one theme for this stage. Even though the level is changing. Was this a good design decision? That's not for me to decide. As we can see here, the level is changing quite a bit, but the music is just that theme. It stays that theme. If there wasn't a time limit, that theme would just repeat endlessly. The point is, the theme of each level, that a lot of gamers remember from older generations, stuck through the entire match and really struck a chord with a lot of people because it brought back memories of games gone past. For example, we're listening to Big Blue from F-Zero right now. I'll give you a little chance to enjoy that. Pretty cool, huh? I mean, I like it with this guitar screeching away. It's really neoclassical shreddiness. And the characters here are playing on a race course from F-Zero, which is originally for the Nintendo. Neat, huh? Fans of F-Zero would have had a blast reliving and seeing all those, you know, elements from that game, just as people who enjoy fighting games would enjoy the fighting itself. This game offered a level and a theme for every Nintendo gamer. There were so many to choose from, and some that I didn't even know about. You know, the themes in this game are expansive, and listing them all and then listening to them all would be tedious and not very rewarding for you, me, Mike Seaver, Carol Seaver, Joey Bag of Donuts, Big Beady, Little Beady, Regular Beady, or anybody else that may or may not exist. Instead, I'll point out that there's this Big Blue theme we're hearing, which is awesome by the way, and another one later on in the video, which I'll show you here. As far as motifs are concerned, though, there isn't much going on in Super Smash Bros. Melee. There are some noises in the menu screen, and, you know, maybe there's some brought back for certain characters, like Mario and Luigi have their coin motifs and jump noises. Here, look. It's pretty heroic, right? It sort of gives the player a bigger sense of satisfaction. But most of the motifs are novel and short-lived, and oh, I hate them. Oh, God, do I hate them, guys. But not really. There's a victory motif that we just heard, and a few others for if you collect a trophy or unlock a trophy, or go to the trophy room, and a couple other areas of the game that we're not going to be seeing. To be quite frank, the music in Super Smash Bros. Is fairly simple. It's just themes of old that have been redone with new synths. I mean, some did a complete overhaul, you know, and were completely changed. Most were just redone with these new synth sounds, i.e. better and or more modern synthesizers played the sounds. Regardless, did those themes make the levels come to life and help gamers relive their former glory from the 80s and 90s? Absolutely. Without those levels themes, Super Smash Bros. Melee would not have been as fun a game, and all the memories wouldn't have been as expansive if they had just written new themes for all the levels that we've seen from past games. It just wouldn't have popped out as much. Without a doubt, effective game music.
Attention, attention. We need you to shoot extraterrestrials.
Okay.
They're using our lifeboat airlocks to attach their boarding craft. We go out and they come in.
Ah, what better place to shoot extraterrestrials than Halo for the original Xbox? Not one of the many iterations that it's had recently. We're going to start with the original because that fits the time period. With a main theme co-written by Mr. Steve Vai himself, Halo shoots and explodes its way onto this list. Not that it means anything, of course. I mean, who cares about this list? Who am I, anyways? Some dumb college kid with an addiction to methocarin, which is meth, coke, and heroin, trying to solve problems on the board that other kids can't solve? No, wait, that's Good Will Hunting. Anyways, back to Halo. Soundtracks of this time had been able to expand greatly, both in orchestration and complexity. Halo features an electric guitar and an orchestra, as well as multiple other instruments that would just take a long time to list and find out what they are. To be fair though, so did Super Smash Bros. Melee and just about every other game of this time, but the important thing is I'm mentioning it now. Now, Halo had stages that didn't start and end at a necessarily concrete place. The player was told to go do a task, but once that task was complete, there was no guarantee that the level would be finished. In fact, the opposite was usually true, and the player would have to keep doing a larger number of tasks. Regardless, the music that played usually took place during a tense sequence of combat, as we were and currently are hearing. Let me give you a little taste of that. You hear that? Drums with the brass section there? It's got a very heroic and yet somewhat desperate theme to it, which is a good feel for the combat of this game. Music was also played during a cinematic cutscene. However, when a player enters in and out of combat, the combat theme plays, and that does vary depending on where they are in the game and what the level is. Like right now we're hearing the beginning theme of combat, but that changes as the player gets onto the main map, etc. Now it usually just starts off as drums and then develops into more as the player stays engaged by the enemy. Or right now, like, there's no music, which is a big thing, but I'll tell you about that later. That's the most notable theme that's player affected, is the combat theme. The other themes usually just begin on their own, or as or after the player completes an objective, or during cutscenes. Generally speaking, though, the themes mostly stick to combat. Each character may have his or her own theme, depending on how much they weigh into the storyline and cutscene, but generally, the music sticks to one or two main themes. Now onto the sound effects. The sound effects in this game are just that, sound effects. Growing technological advancements in computer technology, tech, enabled sound designers to make actual sound effects, not musically based motifs. So, when a grenade explodes, it sounds like an explosion, not a descending synthesizer riff or something like that. The days of those styled motifs really started to grow old here, and we were really starting to see the end of an era, by this point in time at least, and the era of realistic game sound was starting to begin. It is important to note, though, that some moments in-game are more effective because of a lack of music. For example, seeing a crashed ship with dead Marines in it, in my opinion, is a lot more biting and real if there's no music being played. No cheesy, romantic-styled violin riff going on. Rather, just the sound of death. Silence. Or like right now, there's, you know, a little bit of combat going on here, so there should be a theme, but there isn't. Or like right now, right here, where it gets really, really spooky. Well, as soon as he goes in there, anyways, he seems to have a little bit of trouble. Come on, there you go. See, now look. Now that's made all the creepier by the lack of music. In that regard, Halo's game music is, well, its musical design is very effective. In all other regards, Halo's game music itself is pretty effective. Combat is enhanced thanks to the combat theme, and cinematics stand out more with their respective musical elements. The use of heavy drums helps to amplify the sense of urgency, and the string sections having short, choppy riffs at certain sections help reinforce desperation in certain situations that may arise in combat. Cutscenes are all the more effective with elements like that. So, all in all, Halo has very effective game music. Dismissed!
Congratulations, you made it to the end of Video 3 Part 1. Tune in next time for Video 3 Part 2, where we'll be reviewing some of the greatest games ever released, in my opinion. See you then, I hope.